How's it going, everyone? Want to talk the news that came out a little while ago about Naughty Dog and their work on Last of Us Online, or Factions 2, however you want to call it. This was said by Jason Schreier over a week ago, but I've wanted to talk about it for a while because this is honestly one of the more unfortunate stories in all of PlayStation, and it doesn't get a ton of attention because the game was ultimately never revealed outside of that one little piece of, I think, artwork that we saw. Last of Us Online, or Factions 2, whatever you want to call it, was a game that was actually never fully revealed. We never got a gameplay trailer, we never got any sort of official confirmation as far as what the game was going to be called, so on and so forth. But I think anybody that was somewhat following the story and realized that Naughty Dog has pretty much done nothing since the release of Last of Us Part 2 in terms of offering content to the consumer, and that has been a huge, massive blow to PlayStation as far as their first-party output. If you've come to the realization of that, the only conclusion you could have drawn is that a lot of focus was put on Last of Us Online, a lot of focus was put on this Factions 2 project, and that has seemingly been confirmed by Jason Schreier. The game was in development for notably around 4 years, with a team in the hundreds of developers were working on this game. It was an expensive project, and the cancellation made some heads roll at Sony as a result. And unrelated to this specific note by Jason Schreier, if you guys remember, there was that story that came out that Bungie was involved with the cancellation of Last of Us Online and Factions 2. Now, the work they ultimately put in Last of Us Online, it could seemingly be baked into a Last of Us Part 3, but at this point, we have no indication that that is the case. And when you look at Naughty Dog's output, Naughty Dog has pretty much put out no new games this entire generation. They put out Last of Us Part 1 Remastered and Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, but really, I believe a big reason why those games even exist is because Naughty Dog was putting out no other games. Now, would those games have happened regardless? Maybe, but I think just to keep Naughty Dog games somewhat coming out on PlayStation 5 and having some presence on PS5 because they wasted a bunch of time with Last of Us Factions, I think that's a big reason why those games did come to fruition. That's just my speculation. We have no way of knowing, but what we do know is that this online project was a part of that shift to live service gaming. The idea, and I can totally understand why from Sony's thought process, they are thinking, we have a juggernaut of an IP in Last of Us. Let people think what they want about Last of Us Part 2. I certainly have my criticisms with that game, but the facts are the facts that Last of Us is a juggernaut of an IP. If we can somehow flip this into a live service project that can generate us revenue for years and years, that would have become incredibly successful. From the lens of the business heads at Sony, from the shot callers at Sony, I can totally understand why they would want to do something like this, and who knows if this did hinder their production of Naughty Dog's next single-player project. Hint, hint, I would assume it must have, because it has been four plus years since the launch of Last of Us Part 2, and we haven't even seen anything, no CG trailer, nothing about Naughty Dog's next project, and I highly doubt that we are going to get it in 2025. Maybe we'll get Naughty Dog's next single-player project by the end of 2025, but chances are that it's going to be a 2026 game. And maybe it won't even be 2026. I can see in a world where it's announced for 2026 and then gets delayed into 2027 because, let's be honest, a lot of Naughty Dog games these days been getting delayed. I believe Uncharted 4 was initially scheduled for a 2015 release and then it came out in 2016. And I believe Last of Us Part 2 was initially scheduled for a 2019 release and then it got pushed to 2020. Don't quote me on that. Last of Us Part 2 obviously also came out when the world went to hell, but Naughty Dog has not been as consistent as they were in the PlayStation 3 era, and no studio frankly has. As these games have gotten bigger and bigger, the output of said games has gotten smaller and smaller. BioWare hasn't put out a game in like 5 years, and they're finally putting out Dragon Age Veilguard. Guerrilla Games releases a major title every 5 years or so with every Horizon game. In the PlayStation 3 era, things were a lot different, where these games did have a turnaround time that was much quicker. However, because that development process has gotten so long, when you have a fumble like a Last of Us Online, where it's in development for years and years, and then it doesn't come to fruition, that is a massive blunder, and now you're kind of seeing how that has impacted Sony and their first-party output, with 2023 having one game and 2024 having literally 0 major games. Astrobot, you can consider it what you do. Concord, you can consider what you do. Concord is a game that, you know, is one of those live service projects, and it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out. I mean, you guys know my opinions on that, but it's just... Naughty Dog isn't one of those developers like a BioWare or a Rocksteady that people are gonna be too quick to crap all over, because their game didn't actually come out. People aren't actually upset about Last of Us Online because it never came out, like a Suicide Squad, like so many of BioWare's titles like an Andromeda and a Anthem. Naughty Dog still kind of has that novelty where every game they've put out, besides the divisive thought process of Last of Us Part 2, like I know a lot of you guys hate that game, I know I have my criticisms with that game, but Naughty Dog, for the most part, even if they don't put out games regularly these days, every game they have put out going back to the PlayStation 2 era has been absolutely awesome. And if you remember, that PlayStation 3 era where the PS3 was really in a position where they needed a lot of big games. They needed to establish a franchise that could really define the PS3. Who brought that franchise out? It was Naughty Dog. 2007 with Uncharted 1, 2009 with Uncharted 2, 2011 with Uncharted 3. Those are the days, the high period of Naughty Dog that I'd like to remember, and I would like to see Naughty Dog get back to that. I get it, we're never gonna get to a point where Naughty Dog is releasing big titles every other year. No studio is gonna be able to get back to that, but I really do think this is another indication of their hyper focus into this live service project, and that's what I assume they wanted Last of Us Online to be. That's what I assume they wanted Factions 2 to be, whatever it was going to be called. I don't think they wanted it to be this multiplayer game with a lifespan in a vacuum like Factions 1 was. I very much think that they wanted this game to be, oh, it was going to be out for 5 to 10 years, it would make money for that entire 5 to 10 year period, but guess what? A lot of these studios at Sony, they're tasked with doing that. Maybe they just aren't comfortable with doing something like that, and ultimately, it leads to something like this happen. Now, I've said this in previous videos, the wild thing is, even though Naughty Dog has put out nothing, even though I would say PlayStation's output has been rather weak, when you compare it to the competitor at Xbox, it doesn't matter. They can do whatever they want, and yes, it does suck that Last of Us Online never came out, and it sucks that the project has been canceled, and I imagine developers were affected by this, but in the larger scale of how it affected the brand of PlayStation, was PlayStation's console equity impacted whatsoever? Their equity in the console market wasn't impacted whatsoever by Naughty Dog not putting out a game for 5 years, by putting so much money into Last of Us Online, by that game never coming out. Were they impacted whatsoever by that? Are they going to be impacted by Concord likely being a failure? Are they going to be impacted of having a lackluster first-party output for the last 2 years? And even with all of this, even though it is super unfortunate that Naughty Dog hasn't dropped a new game this entire generation, even though 4 years, or however many years have been wasted on doing Last of Us Online, that it probably will never come out. At the very best, it'll get baked into a future project, but it is seemingly canceled. That is a lot of misplays. That is a lot of unfortunate decision-making and project management, whoever is in charge. If it's a Sony decision, a Naughty Dog decision, whatever the case may be. But you would think that decision-making like this that leads to PlayStation having a rather lackluster first-party lineup for 2 years in a row would lead to some sort of actual punishment, because when Xbox made an egregious error, when they tried to push always online, the lack of used games, etc., etc., they got punished pretty hard. Essentially, they handed over the next generation to Sony entirely. The only difference is, right now, market share is not going to change because Xbox doesn't pose a threat whatsoever to Sony. PlayStation is still going to have the lion's share of the market share because Xbox is just not making any of the right plays either. They don't have a compelling lineup of titles that really make people think, oh my goodness, I gotta get an Xbox now. Rather, their lineup has been rather weak for years and years and years, and they've just lost so much market share, and ultimately Sony is not going to be punished. Now, I'm not saying punished that I want them to be punished in the sense of, oh my goodness, there's gonna be layoffs, there's gonna be X, Y, and Z happening. No, what I mean is it would be nice if whenever Sony does a misplay like this, it would give an opportunity for a competitor to come in and take a little bit of that market share. That's how healthy competition is supposed to work. Unfortunately, we are at a point where PlayStation has no competition, so they could do whatever they want in the sense of PlayStation as a brand is not gonna get much weaker from any misplays that they could do. They could try to make live service gaming work for this year, next year, the year after that, and maybe at that point, with that many years, Xbox could get a little bit of market share from Sony, but I don't even know if that would be the case. It's just, I wish Sony had a competitor, because as you guys might know, that is healthy for the industry, that is healthy for the consumer when there are 2 or even more consoles going back and forth. You know, it's just something I would like to see for a healthy competitive environment. And in the ideal world, I would just like PlayStation to be putting out great games. I would like Xbox to be putting out great games. And right now, PlayStation has just been rather lackluster. I do believe they're gonna course correct and they're gonna get back on track in 2025. It's just unfortunate that 2023 and 2024 was rather lackluster, to say the least, and I think a big reason for that is because of that push in in live service gaming. If we didn't have a Concord, if we didn't have so much emphasis on Last of Us Online as this live service project, imagine if Naughty Dog did get a new game out. Imagine if instead of Concord, you got, I know it's totally random, like a new Sly Cooper. I don't know. Imagine if resources were put towards games like that, that did beefing up the PlayStation first-party output. I'm just offering that to you guys, and you know, maybe in this hypothetical world we'll return to in the future. That's gonna do it for me. Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments section down below. Sound off there. Interested to hear what you guys think. And hopefully, we do hear about whatever Naughty Dog's next project is. If it's Last of Us Part 3, even though I'm kind of checked out of Last of Us after Last of Us Part 2, great. I know a lot of people are gonna enjoy that, and I would be happy for that game to exist, because I know the PlayStation community is gonna be very excited by something like that. If they decide to do a new IP, great. Would be interested in that as well. But let me know all your thoughts in the comments section down below. Sound off there. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.